Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and do some introductions before our presenters, and hopefully a few more can join in while I'm introducing and welcoming everyone. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Linda Camacho, Committee Chair for AIA Houston Latinos in Architecture. Welcome to our second symposium celebrating Hispanic heritage through architecture, art, cuisine, music, language. Today we will be hearing from a new generation of Latin women architects, Gabriela Etchegaray and Marcela González Veloz, both based in Mexico City. This is our last day of our symposium. It has been a successful event these 3 days. If you missed out, please stay tuned for next year, which we keep making it a better event. I think Bayardo keeps saying we out. What do you say, Bayardo? And I guess I'll ask you. So you can hear all the great stuff folks have been talking about last night's events and Wednesday's event. And so for our last day event, before we get started, I want to take this time to let you know about LEA, what we do. So special thanks to our guest speakers and their symposium. They've truly made this a very pleasant and wonderful event. Before we get started, some of you are aware of what our committee involvement is. For those of you hearing about LEA for the first time, we strive to bring awareness of Latino culture and provide mentorship opportunities for middle school, high school, and college students, as well as professional development opportunities and spotlighting Latino architects and architecture, just like what we're doing today with Gabriela and Marcela. If you're interested in becoming a supporter or scholarship sponsor, please see me at the end of the presentation. We would also like to thank our generous symposium sponsors this year, Page, CW Lighting, DBR, Kirksey Architecture, Lesco Lighting Technology, Matrix Structure, MWA Architects, S&G, Brava Kistner, Tarket, and Teal Construction Company. Thank you for sponsoring this event, our symposium for this year. A portion of this year's symposium funds will go towards supporting the Latinos in Architecture Collegiate Scholarship and Mentorship Program. We would also like to thank Martinez Architecture and also Patagonia Grill for donating towards the scholarship fund. Last week, we met our college students, our mentees for this school year, kicking off our mentorship and scholarship program. Our scholarship recipients will be announced next week, or sorry, not next week, next year in May. Giving back to the community and helping out our future architects is key to LEA's mission. So if you would like to be a mentor to a middle school, we do have several middle schools that we're working with. Hogg Middle School in Fawnville, we met with the district last Friday to discuss the opportunities of mentoring other middle schools and high schools. They're excited at what we do. It's like I said, giving back to the community, and it's important to start off with the young middle school students, planting the seed, not only to do architecture, but to ask them that they can go beyond high school if they don't have anyone at home that is, asking them or pushing them to go beyond their limits that they currently have. Everyone just finish up high school, and it would be great if they can continue on to college. And seeing Latino professionals is something that they can relate to. We actually had one of our mentees yesterday talk to us and tell us how important it was for her to see Latino architects and professionals. So this is why we're doing this. And so let me get back onto my script here. And now let's sit back and relax so you can hear for our new generation of Latino women architects. So if some of you don't know, in Mexico, everyone starts off with the name of their profession in front of, before their name. So typically we would say Gabriela, so Arquitecta Gabriela Etchegaray with Ambrosi Etchegaray, and Arquitecta Marcela González Veloz with Oficio Taller, both based in Mexico City. So you can type in your questions in the chat or just go ahead and when Marcela and Gabriela ask if you have any questions, feel free to, open your video and talk to them. Let's just make this relaxed and fun like we have been doing for the past 2 days. Gabriela, ¿sí estás ahí?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
How are you? Thank you. Thank you, Linda, for the introduction. Thank you, Jennifer and Anna, for this invitation and for the brief talks that we had over the last months in order to be here. I wanted to start my sharing a little bit of my work. I'm going to share 2 projects, but before that, I want to share a couple of images that contextualize my background. My background as a woman, as Mexican, as architect, as human, or as many or zero descriptions or labels that I may feel akin to address myself. But these images have meaning and have served as reference of the place I stand within my practice. This first image, it's the map of the Aztec capital city, which was published in Europe in the 1500s. One of the interesting things I found about this image is that the map calls our attention because of the provocative issue of representation. And at the same time, because it translates or it exemplifies a space, a culture, a movement, a society believes within this representation. In addition to this, the construction of the representation, it has been suggested that the map was adapted by European craftsmen and based on an indigenous map of the city and through the interpretations of Hernán Cortés' letters to Europe. Therefore, if we look closely to the borders of the map, we can see that there are European architectures represented within the pre-Hispanic temples at the center and the pyramids. Despite this highly stylish, the general design reflects what is known of the layout of Tenochtitlan, and also the map was oriented with the south on the top. So, which takes me to this piece that it's called America Invertida, at Inverted America, where Joaquin Torres, an artist from Uruguay, plays with the collective idea of a continent just by flipping around the familiar image that we have about South America. Through this action, he offers a possibility of a new way to see the continent in relation to the rest of the world. And every time I am invited to talk about my practice, I raise questions about the work, the ideas, how personal or how collective the work is, with all the relationship and influence that permeate the work that we do. And over the last 6 years, we have been going back and forth between Mexico City and New York City. And it has given us that space, that distance to our space of doing, of building, and of practicing, providing us a space to look towards our work and our thoughts. Studying there in New York and teaching there have balanced our approach to how we interact or how we see the interrelationships at play in each project. So I would like to share these 2 projects, both of them through the lenses and questioning where we stand when we project or when we practice or we exercise our practice. And I believe there is a common ground experience that we all may share in this time of pandemia, where we have gotten more conscious about our bodies, how we relate to one another, the space in which our bodies move, touch, or don't touch, and how we take place from a literal concern within the relationship between architecture and the bodies to a strictly figurative one. To take place as an individual action seems to open up a world of possibilities in order to understand the complexities of our actions and interaction in a specific moment. First of all, we must understand that our human bodies are connected to other types of bodies. Bodies that address different forms, such as infrastructure, landscape, communities, economies, among others. Such bodies act like threads that are related to one another, all interconnected at the same time. And second, and probably most importantly, we must understand that our bodies have the possibility of a greater reach that goes beyond the condition of our physical body. This means that our interconnected existence is actually a coexistence, where our actions have implications with multiple bodies. So the previous premises required us to look further and at different scales. Only by acknowledging our extended existence, we will be fully responsible for the actions we develop when we take a place. Within that in mind, and following the free motto space by Grafton architects at the last Venice Biennale, which we understood as all the conceivable possibilities at an undefined space, but then again defined by the land, we wanted to deepen our understanding of a territory, the territory of Mexico, as a country. And we used, again, tools of representation to sort and to show a territory full of contrast, a territory where certain voids or free spaces can only be highlighted through the lack of long-term or even short-term compromises of the space we inhabit. A territory where the territorial incomprehension leads to areas with extreme poverty and natural disasters, where the government absence does not design policies for protecting green areas or such as high-risk regions to be inhabited, and those with almost no infrastructure. Through an investigation of Mexican anthropography, the pavilion under the title Echoes of a Land, developed for this Venice Biennale 2018, was developed through an overlay of maps, reflections, and of the scale of urbanization and transforming the Mexican territory, where the dichotomy between natural environment and topographic transformations are linked as well to one another. The exhibition Echoes of a Land was based on the language of the artist of the muralist art, essential in Mexican history as a movement sought to maintain and to reactivate the reconstruction process of a collective identity after the revolution. So in this time, we tried to rescue a discourse of identity to reach and reveal the extent and relationship between the country and the urban-rural continuum. The reflections presented a series of projects in the center of country. These projects were a requirement by the institution in charge, in which we intended to show the scale of an intervention in relation to a geography, questioning the domains to other bodies with those that architecture intertwine, to bring to light contemporary challenges that are sometimes hidden behind architectural pieces. We attempt to call an interdisciplinary approach, as well as to understand complex processes that work hand in hand with ecological and social dynamics. Therefore, the section at the center of the pavilion, carved in stone and also drawn, suggests the link between those two main murals, which played a contrasting perspective, one about the qualities and richness of the past, and the other showing the catastrophe caused by natural disaster and human negligence from the last biennial to this one. This section, however, goes from East Coast to the Mexican Gulf, to the West Coast, where the main maritime port operates. Such section was traced, and it alludes the expedition of Alexander von Humboldt in the same region. And the expedition across the center of the country revealed and presented the ecological treasures generated in the neovolcanic axis, which is now the land in where most of the species and the water, it's a very rich land, have given birth to one of the most significant human settlements of the territory, where today happen to be the largest cities in the country of Mexico. So this neovolcanic axis has been shown also as a reference of how, if we study the land we inhabit, we can understand culture and the personal perspective of where people live. And perhaps understanding architecture as a body that could represent and give us substantial information on how to address the way we inhabit, we can also see architecture as a body that gives us the possibility to see architecture caring for itself and caring for others. Through that, we might also give space for architecture to address other forms of living. And when we were invited to participate in an area in Puerto Escondido, where there is a set of pavilions nearby Casa Wabi, among them the clay pavilion of Alvaro Sisa, a chicken coop by Kengo Kuma, and the landscape by Alberto Calach, or the compost pavilion by Solano Benítez. We were asked to design a pavilion for a Guayacan tree. And the Guayacan tree is an endangered species, a tree that is found in the Mexican Pacific coast, mainly in hot climates. So our first approach was how to address a space where the main user or the main inhabitor is going to be the plant. And to cultivate and to work with this species, which is also in low risk of extinction, it was necessary to establish a legal framework to obtain federal approval for the government. So the project was framed within an environmental management unit, which is called an UMA. And we imagine architecture similar to this sort of like image, where architecture works as an agent that mediates the interrelationship between plants and humans, interconnected with the soil and the plants, exposed to the air and to the drastic weather that it's found in Puerto Escondido. A space to nurture and to observe and to endanger a species, this species called Guayacan, a tree found in the Pacific coast, as I mentioned, and mainly also on countries below Mexico, that have warm weather. The Guayacan Pavilion was sought as a threshold, a place for mediation. Inside it, plants are the first to take place. They are kept at the level of the ground, while the human activity is pushed 1 meter below earth as an action of disarticulation. While such action gives the possibility to observe and to touch and to care for the sprouts in a better position, it also helps the viverista, the person that takes care of the plant, to have a better position in terms of the plant, to address the plant, but also for its posture and its physical activity. It also concentrates this pushback, or this push below the zero level, the surface. It also concentrates the humidity that it's emerging from the wet ground, creating an enhanced micro weather for the plants. The threshold is marked by a flooded slab and a water deposit. It is kind of a fountain that recognizes and that intertwines the relationship between the tree and the water. It also provides the only space of shadow, and this slab that you see there, it's the only space of shadow for the human workers and the visitors to cover up from the temperatures during the day that goes above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The rest of the space is just for the sun and the air along the plantations, the beds, an empty space that evidences the transition between rains and droughts. So perhaps, well, this is the cycle where the water slab sort of like circulates the water, and there is a technology where the water it's collected and then it's treated and recycled, and it helps also on the slab, on the higher part of the slab, to create a more fresh or more comfortable condition below this slab. So perhaps to conclude the reflection shared briefly this afternoon, what I'm trying to sort of like provoke or to allocate is an invitation to think about the body and the bodies we inhabit, about the cause effect of human impact and natural ecosystems, about the different scales that one body permeates into another. It is also an invitation to break the limits of architecture, to comprehensively reprogram, reinterpret, and present typologies that give power and form on the political, the economical, and the environmental at large. With this in mind, to be aware of the multiple scales on which our decisions can impact. So I hope this reflection serves to embrace diversity when designing, that architecture can build ties of ethics and responsibility that annihilates archaic, unquestioned patterns of thought, and that can focus in our practice is on building conditions that are rich in diversity and care for all species or all species of bodies that hold life. And thank you for this time. I would like to open up this time for Q&A and before we move to Marcela's presentation.
Are there any questions? Trying to see if there's anything in the chat. Gabriela, can you point where this is located? El vivero?
This here in Oaxaca.
Oaxaca.
Mexico City would be here, and the neovolcanic axis that I was presenting is here.
Mm-hmm.
The first map, it's pretty much the center where the Aztec capital was, Tenochtitlan. And what's interesting about that is the condition of like the whole axis of volcanoes that sort of like ties a very contrasted land to inhabit, but also because of the water basins that conform this area, it's where most of the cities, well, the bigger cities or the most developed cities are there, and well, have been sort of like developing in this axis.
And as you said, this is a public work that you did, or is it private?
This in particular, this is a map that we
but the El
represented.
Vivero.
No, this is just a map that presented the diversity of ecosystems in a region.
Oh, but the El Vivero that you showed us, the one that was built?
That one, it's in Oaxaca, and it's a private, yeah, it's private. A space where near Casa Wabi, it's one of the pavilions that addresses a condition or a relationship to the area here. The other ones that I mentioned is the clay pavilion by Alvaro Sisa, a compost pavilion by Solano Benitez, and there are like a few pavilions that have been developed nearby Casa Wabi, which is a artist residence project.
So Gabriela, we do have a question from Andrea Almaguer. She would like to know, when you're designing, can you talk about your designing process, your thinking? What helps you get your ideas? Is it by working or in silence?
Sure. Well, when designing, a lot of things happen. But before that, like before really thinking on what we should address, how we should address, how is it that we should sort of like rethink it, we pretty much start with research. We believe that there isn't a white page or the blank page to start. It's always sort of like there's always a heritage to it, there's always a background, and there's always information that should be considered and studied and understood. So the process would be pretty much a research and design-based process. And then from there, we sort of like always try to create threads to it, threads to things from different perspectives, for instance, about the people or the community or the people that conform that area, but also about the geographic conditions, like how was that land formed within like the history, how much it has changed through human settlements or through the climate change, like how it has sort of like moved how the water circulates on the surfaces, the wind, like all the natural conditions that we could sort of like understand. And we try to not only see it from like a narrow perspective or a very short or closed context, but we try to sort of like understand if there is a flow of water, which river it's coming from, which mountain sort of like leads that water there. So we try to sort of like look towards a bigger picture, a larger area, because we do believe that everything is interconnected. So the more we research on that and the deeper we go on that, it's going to be also more vast, and our first ideas or our first traces to whatever it is that we're designing. So and also we always, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say that we also like to think about program, like how to think of, like, it's not only about creating a space with a comfortable environment and an aesthetic sort of like environment as well, but how is it that it's going to be used, and how versatile that use can be in terms of programming. So it's also about like re-questioning how we address typologies and what are the limits of architecture.
Great. There's also another question. Who owns these pavilions? Is this the state government or institution? I know you said it was private, but
it's the organization Casa Wabi.
Casa Wabi is who owns it. Okay. Great. And then so for each of your projects, you go ahead and do some research, and then that's what guides you through your process.
Yes.
And the next question from Horacio Gomez, the previous question was from Benito Guerrier, and now Horacio Gomez would like to know, what are some of the considerations taken into account for selecting materials in your projects?
Well, this is also an interesting question, because like today as architects, we shouldn't it shouldn't be only about like what are the materials going to look at the end, or what is that material going to provide as a sense of environment or warmness or texture or condition from a formal perspective, but also where does that material comes from. And I think with this research, and when we are presenting the first traces, and also when we present the first ideas of materials, and what we're starting, because this is not something that we've done always, but it's more recent that we've been more responsible on how is it that we assign a material for each for any project that it's going to be built. Where does that material come from? What process it had to go through? And I know there has been a moment also about addressing sustainability and through understanding or trying to get the closest material to the site. But it's not just that, it's also about like what methods of extraction that material went through, and to question that more in a critical way. It's going to help us probably build less, because it's crazy the amount of energy, of budget, and of an industrial manufacturer that we as architects are engaged, and we are part of that sort of footprint that we create. So selecting materials, it's a responsibility. I wouldn't say that there's like there aren't any rules to it. It has to be thought in a very critical and responsible way in each project. And so that's sort of like the ideas behind on how to select a material.
Great. Are there any other questions? No. Gabriela, is there anything else you would like to let our guests know before we move on to Marcela? Your last words.
Well, my last words are that like to try to see architecture as something that establishes sort of like threads of ethic and responsibility within the bodies that we inhabit, but also the bodies that are going to inhabit any space. And I look forward to hearing Marcela. So if she's ready, I would love to see her slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. Marcela, we would also like to see you. So don't forget to, it's like undo your video.
I don't know why.
It's not letting you.
Yes.
It was before. Okay, well,
Yeah.
the Q&A, we can get to me too.
I don't know why. Wait.
So everyone, we do various trial runs and everything works during trial
Yeah.
run.
Yeah, I'm there. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
Hi, Marcela.
Hi. Well, it's always a pleasure to listen to you, Gabriela. Hi, I'm Marcela González from Oficio Taller. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited. It's always really amazing to share as a human and as an architect, like with people that also design and build with different cultural filters. So I'm sure this is going to be a great experience. This is going to be more like a personal journey through my learning and or learning of stuff. And first, I want to talk a little bit about who I am, where I'm coming from, and how my life has been shaped the way I've been designing. So I grew up at Durango here, at the north of the country, without knowing anything about architecture or without dreaming about being an architect. But I grew up surrounded by haciendas. And I always loved that kind of atmosphere of places full of history. I was in love of running around through the gardens, the patios, the porticos. So that was my kind of places. And I also grew up near to nature. Durango, it's surrounded by forest and desert. So I was always dreaming to be near to nature. My grandmother was always gardening. So I grew up with this feeling of being related to the earth and to the plants. Then I moved to Monterrey, also at the north, to study. And I was about to study marketing, and then by the last minute, I decided to change it to architecture school. I don't know why. It was just like this hard feeling of I should do this, but I had no idea. None of my family were architects. So it was a journey from a small city to a bigger city. And that was my first teacher, the city. It was a change where it was full of cars. It was more disconnected, so much more vertical. So you should understand that every place you have been visiting or living, it's always teaching you something. Maybe if you're not conscious of it, it's happening. So I started learning about the city by always while I was studying, I was trying to run away through the mountains because this is the city and it's all surrounded by mountains. I was always loving being here instead of here. I'm always related to this same path to nature. Then I had the opportunity to go to Barcelona to work with Carlos Ferrater. And I remember the first day he asked me like, have you been through Barcelona? And said like, no, this is the first time. And he said, she is going to be your best teacher. So this first week, just walk around the city and try to understand how we work, how we live, how we experience here. And so that was my next teacher. And what Barcelona told me was completely the opposite of Monterrey teachings. It's a completely scale, sense of movement, of history, of related to the sea. So I was so excited about learning a lot about that culture and that city. Then I came back to Monterrey, and I had as a professor Agustin Landa, and he was the one that made me fall in love with architecture. And the first thing he said to me was like, he was asking me a lot about architects and design, and was completely lost. And he said like, okay, first of all, you need to go to the library and fall in love with the books. And you need to understand history, and you need to understand the theory behind architecture to become a great architect. And that was the moment I fell in love with books, because I actually didn't knew anything about architecture. And he always said to me, like, if you want to be a great architect, you need to go and find those sources, because if you copy one source, you're going to be a thief. But if you copy 1,000, you're going to be a researcher. You're going to be an investigator. So you should be something like that. And he also told me about, you need to travel and you need to visit architecture. And he said, you probably are going to be a great teacher, and that it's going to make you a better architect, because someone who shares their knowledge, it's also becoming always better because of the interaction. So when I graduated, he invited me to come back as a professor to the university, and it changed everything. So I think these were like the little steps, and all that I've been doing, it's always for this. Every time I'm going for a travel or to explore, it's always to places surrounded by nature. I love that feeling of me feeling a little small inside a beautiful landscape or a beautiful sunset or a beautiful sunrise. It's always a reminder of how small I am and how small are my projects and my problems. So I'm always trying to adapt me to the scale of what we are and what we're trying to solve. And let me erase this to keep going. So this is just a bit to understand like where I have been, and what Agustin and Ferrater told me was all about order, function, modulation, modern architecture. So when this project arrived, the clients told me like, we want a concrete house. This was my first house. So I did what I knew. Like I learned through the architecture school how to order, how to understand function, how to design through modern architecture. So this is my knowledge. This was a project where I was exploring that. So from the beginning, and that's something that I continue working that way. All of my plans are full of these grids that it's related to materials. I always pick, well, when we are thinking of which material are going to be working, we try to understand that material, the measurements, how it's the construction system, how it's the temperature, how it's the color, the possibilities. And then we start designing with that in mind. It's not something that it comes after. So since the beginning, we start working with that system. That's why we use those grids and models. In this case, this house was in this residential area into the mountain. And I was trying to adapt, it was like this feeling of that huge house that it's around to 12,500 square feet. So It was a huge home, and I was trying to find a way how can I make that as a cozy place. So I came to Mexico City to visit the Casa Studio of Luis Barragan. And I understand how with the compression of spaces, you can make this cozy place and then release and explore heights and views. And so this project, it's all about this movement through the spaces. And what we were trying to explore is this concrete building as a stone inside the mountain, and releasing due to the views. The family were so social. They love to entertain. So all the spaces are more related to that feeling of entertaining and being outside. We have more attention into that. And there's also a place where they work. So they are 3 offices there also as their home. So it was like, how can we adapt this private feeling and that work feeling and social feelings through these spaces and atmospheres connected to the views and to the cities and to the city. And we have like these 2 patios that make like this movement through the house, always discovering the patio of the water or the patio of the tree, and everything is connected to this roof that it works like almost like an umbrella, that in a city that as Monterrey, that it's so hot, it works as a protection for all of the spaces, and it creates a space to the flow of the wind to go through, and it makes a more comfortable space to live. But I was always trying to force, like, it's a huge place and it's concrete. I was trying to play around the building with the gardens to create different experiences of smells. And for example, in this one, I was always my anxiety and my desire to be related to nature. This one, now it's like everything is growing, so you have to go through the leaves to go inside the table. So I was trying to bring that kind of atmospheres to this kind of materiality and cold modern architecture, because my soul is more related to that. Then this project came, and it's called 15 de Mayo. And this was like my next learning. The first one was all about school modulation, order, structure, function. And in this time, it was the first time I was, this construction was so near from my office. So I was almost living there. And I understood this was my next school. I was learning from the craftsmen. And that's actually when I decided to call my office Oficio Taller, because I understood I need to be open from the teachings of all the people that it's around me, and the people that it's involved in the construction. And when I arrived here, the client called me and said, like, I have a lot. Like, and when I was there, like, I can see a lot. Yeah, it's at the corner. And it's like, no, there's a building there. And he said, no, that's too old. It's so bad. It's a ruin. It's destroyed. And here, this is at the center of Monterrey. Here is a plaza. It's called La Plaza del Mediterráneo. That it's like the heart of that neighborhood. And I was like, oh, we are just at the corner of that plaza. We can't destroy that. We're going to destroy the feeling of that neighborhood. So I was trying to make him to understand the value of keeping that property for the design. So this is the original walls that we had. And he wanted to build their offices. So we add this new volume with the extra rooms he needed. And we were explaining, like, we should keep this, and above this, you can have like this space, open space where you can have your meetings. And he was like, no, but you should go inside the building to understand how bad it is. But I was keep saying that, and no, we're not going to get rid of this. We're going to work through this. I was related to those haciendas with that feeling of history, of, I don't know, life through it. So while I was going through it, I was also imagining the possibilities of having a new structure with the old one. And I remember when I arrived to this, when I entered to this space, I could see the material through here, and let's get rid of that and let's bring that into life. And luckily the client trusts us, and this was an opportunity, as I told you, to work and to learn with all the craftsmen. We were with these old materials, trying to understand what new materials are we going to bring into it that could relate. I was looking at the Florence, it's like, we're not going to use ceramics. We need something that could be related to both materialities. And it also for this was when they finished the restoration of the roof of the old building. I remember they said to me, like, come Marcela, and when I was up there, I could see the neighborhood through it, and there was like this beautiful chapel there and the mountains through there. And I was designing that space with a closed wall. And when I saw that, it's like, no, we need to bring that inside the project. So it's really important to be during the process of your buildings, because there are some opportunities that are going to be there that when you're designing, you're not able to see that. And so that's the image when I was with the construction workers with the wood, like, move right there. And no, that's exactly the point. We're going to, no, move it a little bit high. So we were trying to find out the way of how we can bring inside the neighborhood and the barrio inside the project. Well, it was a cloudy day, but when it's a sunny day, you can see the Sierra Madre mountains right there, and then the plaza, and then the neighbors. So it would be a completely different space if we hadn't had that experience during the construction. And this is what I was talking about. Like, this was the opportunity to explore true materials and to understand how was the process of doing it. And it was a beautiful community with the neighbors. They were like, don't use that kind of material with the old stones, because you're going to have problems with the humidity. So it's always you need to understand, like, architecture should be collective, and this was like the perfect experience to that. This is the space that connects the new building with the old building. And definitely that opportunity to preserve the old structure continues with the relationship with the plaza and with the neighborhoods. When they are there, everyone, it's like saying good afternoon. Like, you're part of that community. You need to be conscious of the impact through your actions, through architecture, of how can change or destroy or reconnect or readapt to the actual life around it. And then here's a recent project, and this one I wanted to talk about because it shows a little bit more of how are we working now. And I have this phrase that I love in Spanish. So if you want to understand it, I would love you to try to look and understand the meaning through Spanish. It's like, nadie sabe cómo habitar, nadie sabe mejor cómo habitar que los habitantes. And this was the learning about, this is a project in Baja California Sur. It's a beautiful property. It's huge with 360 views, amazing views of mountains, the sea, like crops right there. It's a beautiful place. And before that, we had the opportunity to get involved into these kind of landscapes through desert, jungle. So we, as Gabriela told, you need to understand architecture should be collective, and you need to understand that everything that we build has an impact, and has an ecological impact, a social and economic impact. So we need to be aware of that. And when we start like having these kind of projects, we love to be inside the properties. So I'm always picking the woods, the stones, the vegetation to understand what kind of materials we can use. And we try to use it from the side or near from them to avoid this kind of impact of the sources, what also Gabriela was talking about. And it's also, I love the architecture that it looks like it's emerging from it, not as a protagonist. It's just like a part. We need to understand architecture, its landscape. And I love these first steps. And we also do go through all of this with my team and with the clients. I'm at this moment, or well, for the last few projects, we've been working through this sensual design. And we think design should be thought as something that could be not something that it's designing for the eyes, that also it can be heard, felt, and smelled. So we are there with the clients, and we're always doing these logs of what do you smell, what's the texture, what's the sound, and we try to work through the design with these elements to get involved of what you have already there and what you're going to design there. But this is one of the best parts of it. And we also try to involve different specialists, because architecture does not come first. You can create a beautiful and aesthetic building or a piece, but you need to understand first the territory, the land, the landscape where you are. So I'm always working with hydrologists, agronomists, biologists, and it's pretty amazing what you can design when you do it through different questions, through different specialities. It's always the results are more interesting than just thinking about, oh, I'm going to rush into design something. When you have all of these elements from other specialities involved, you start like having, or some opportunities are showing that maybe if you don't do that, you don't get to see that. So it changes the way you can design. We love to create these diagrams of life. We call that, because we need to understand we are not just designing spaces. You are just working with containers of life. So I love to go there with the clients and to explore the properties and to find where they feel more comfortable about drinking a bottle of wine, or where are they going to be reading. And it's a really amazing experience to go with them and to really trying to understand the way they live. And this is also in our diagrams. We also have like with the sounds, I don't have it right here, but we use the sounds of the properties during the process of designing and to show the opportunities to the clients. And this creates a lot of options through the design. And we also, what we do is to always think with them about the atmospheres of the feeling of every space before designing the space, instead of thinking after how it's going to be the interior designer. We're always thinking of what kind of memory through textures, through colors, through feelings they want to have. So it's always having like all of these little pieces from the hydrologist, from the different kind of life they're going to have, from the already the landscape or the sounds of the places. So we're catching everything before designing. This is, for example, of this project, the hydrological design. So this makes you first, it gives you a lot of information before trying to design something. So after we have like this beautiful experience through the clients thinking and dreaming about their atmospheres, about the way of living, and with all of the information of the specialists, normally we start with the conceptual design of the project. And it was before like designing with the theme, and then we present that to the clients. And this was like the master plan of the first conceptual presentation. And I remember when we were explaining this to the client, they were like, I don't know, they are so expressive and so romantic and emotional, and they were like gone. And after that, I was asking like, what happened? And they said like, the first part, it was so amazing. We were feeling part of the theme and we were so involved in it. And then it was like you disappear working, and now we have a home. Like we feel kind of disconnected. We would love to be part of the process. At that moment, I understood the way well, at least at my school, they teach me like, you as an architect, you don't have to show your plans to the client while it's in process. You don't even show the model because they are going to see that they can change something and you know how to do it. They don't. And then I get to realize they know how to live. They know what they need, what they dream about it. So we changed everything and said like, we're going to start all over again and involve the clients in all the conceptual process. It was a beautiful experience where they were writing me, I was dreaming about this, I was thinking about this, they were sending me their drawings, I was drawing over the drawings, they were drawing over my drawings. And after that, everything was like more, I understand we are doing a service for people. We need to understand that we need to get rid of the ego and start like working as a collective, not only with the specialist, but with the people who's going to live and work through the spaces. And this is the final result after we were working together, and definitely it's more connected to their life, and it was faster, easier, more excited for everyone. So this is like the new way we are designing. We love that, to get involved with them and with all the specialists. You can see through here, like you can see the hydrological design, the productive, the landscape design, and also the architecture right there, that we love to use those diagrams, the first live diagrams we have. We use it through the plans and to the layouts. It's so different to go through it and understand that's the place where you're going to lay down and watch the stars instead of just naming a room. So we find like designing and going through all the process and the practice in a more personal and responsible way. It's the way it works for us. Here are some images of the project. This is going to be built. Well, we're going to start the building in like a month. And this is there. It's beautiful because they were really part of this process. And I love what I'm doing. I love architecture. I love to always rethinking the way I'm designing. But I'm also all of the time with the struggle of what I'm doing. It's also destroying. And we need to be aware of the ecological impact of the climate change, of the floodings, of the migrations for social, cultural, economic, climatic problems. So I'm always in this problem, like I can't do everything, but I can do something. And we start working with some of the biologists that were teaching us, and to protect one of the most vulnerable ecosystems in Mexico. It's called Bosque de Niebla. It's like a forest near from Veracruz. And what we're trying to is to help them with sources for their research or their exploration through seed banks and reforestation. And we're thinking of ways to go through native species into the cities, into the project. So it's always a talking between them and us. And it's a beautiful way to also involve the clients, so they know with each project that it's going through the office, they are also helping to restore these beautiful and important ecosystems that create the stability of the country. And by last, I want to share this. So I don't know where did I find this, but what is important to me, it's like to understand, first you need to learn. And then you need to unlearn a lot. If I got stuck just designing this modern functional architecture, that it was not me, it was my teachers, I couldn't find my voice. And I was always measuring myself against others and always with high expectations of what should I be doing. And the moment I could silence that and focus on nature, it's always been my thing. Nature, it's where I feel the most related. I was just working through it and taking care of it. And then clients start coming that also love nature, that also are responsible with their actions. So you need to find your voice and start comparing and trying to just be someone else. The beautiful thing in this profession is like, there are a lot of roads, there are a lot of options. So you should pick the one that really suits you. And yeah, that's it. This is how we work, a little bit of the projects, and I hope something could work for you.
Marcela, this is wonderful. You gave us so much information, and you and Gabriela opened up a lot of topics that I think we need to take into account. Ecology, taking care of Mother Earth, I think is something that we need to focus on as well. There was a question for you, Marcela, about Quince de Mayo, where it's located. I just responded in Centro. I know I lived there only for like 6 years, but I know you had a map.
Yes, it's well, at Monterrey, near from the Purísima. That was the church that was right in the whole.
Oh, okay. I know where that's at. I just never remembered the name of the plaza.
No, it's a small plaza just from the neighbors, but it's so near from the Purísima Plaza.
And then Ana Villarreal would like to thank you both. This was incredible. Yes, Ana Villarreal and Benito Guerrier were two of our LIA members that pretty much set up our symposium speaker lineup. And thanks to them that we had a great turnout due to our great speakers. Are there any other questions for Marcela? Marcela or Gabriela? Gabriela, I do want to know a little bit about where you're from. I know that we didn't get to ask you that question, and what school you went to.
I'm from Mexico City, and I went to Universidad Iberoamericana. That was where I studied my bachelor. And then I also did a master in Barcelona and another one in New York in Columbia University.
Awesome. And then Marcela, you went to Monterrey, el Tec, or?
Yes, I was at the Tec de Monterrey as a student and then as a professor for 11 years.
And so the person that asked you to come to teach, he taught at Tecnológico as well.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Agustin.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. Bayardo Silva says both wonderful architects. This is great because I know in past last year and the year before last, we typically always have male architects, and I've been told, why don't we have female architects? So now we do this great opportunity to have you both on here and discuss your great work, and always bringing that we can feel your love for architecture. I think this is what it's all about, trying to remind us, because I think we get so involved in our daily grind that we forget, why did we go into architecture? And both of you brought that back to us. It's like, it's just, we need those reminders, and finding our voice, like you said, Marcela, are key important elements. And discovering life and sounds, it's important, and not just lose track of that. Are there any other questions from the committee, not committee members, speakers?
It's also important to understand that as Latinos, we have a lot of restrictions with budgets and with technologies, but that allows us to go through creativity and through craftsmen. And we have some restrictions, but we also have a lot of freedom and possibilities also. So it's also probably the same there. You have some things that probably we don't, but the opportunities are different.
Great. And so Alicia del Bosque has a question. She would like to know, do you prefer commercial or residential? And if you can both answer that. So Gabriela, do you prefer commercial or residential work?
Probably I would say neither or both. For me, at the end, it doesn't really matter that much the program, but how you approach the program. And I think any scale or any program in architecture could be very exciting in how you approach to it. It's more about the process and how you frame it. And so I wouldn't be able to choose. Like, I see opportunities and excitement in both, and also in either. It depends a lot also in the relationship with the client.
That you have, yes. Marcela, how about you?
I think the same. I think each project, it's a different opportunity to ask different questions, to understand different possibilities, materials, ways of living. So I love that. I love that opportunity to think and rethink with you and with the others around you. So there's no preference.
Mm-hmm. No problem. I'm just reading through some of the comments. There was a comment from Ana Villanueva who said, is it Villanueva? Because we, in our membership, we have two Anas. One is Villanueva and one's Villarreal. I think this is, yeah, Ana Villanueva was saying that this is a nice way of looking at architect's job and our responsibility with surroundings of our project. So that was Ana. I know she's been really busy lately. And then Andrea, Feliz Dia del Arquitecto to everyone. Oh, is that today? I didn't even know that. That is wonderful. So those of you do not know today, and is it only in Latin America or is it worldwide?
I don't know.
I do not know as well.
Here it is.
In Mexico? Okay, so today is Architects Day. So wonderful. This is a great way to start that off and get to know. It just happened. Perfect. So Alicia del Bosco said, very interesting projects. Thanks. I hope I can see the recording later. So Jennifer, I think we can send out the recording to those that signed up, correct? If not, let me know, but she missed some of the beginning portion, so she'd like to hear that. Yvette Herrera said, excellent presentation, very inspiring and beautiful work.
Thank you.
And Sandra Balder said, thank you, ladies. Love getting to see your projects. Ana Villanueva, beautiful works. Benito, Marcela, wonderful work. And Alicia del Bosco, I already asked you her question. And Ana Villanueva said, embracing the process, love that. I think we forget that. And then Jennifer did say, yes, she will share the presentation. So we get to see it again. So there's, hold on, there's another question over here for Andrea Almaguer, for both. What would you recommend when transitioning between the architecture done in Mexico and the United States? So that's part one. I'll let you answer that because she's saying, when you say finding your voice, I sometimes feel I am divided by the two. What do you think could help to find the passion and voice when you're still finding where it belongs? And I think that happens to all of us, that we live here. Our roots are in Mexico or any other parts of Latin America. And we know that architecture is driven. Sometimes we have the passion, but then we have all the code and all the other stuff that we have to deal with here. So going back to her question, what would you recommend when transitioning between architecture done in Mexico and the United States? I don't know if you've had the opportunity to work here in the United States.
I don't know if you, Gabriela.
Well, I haven't designed like a proper project in the United States, but I guess it's a matter of like relating to the territory, to the people. And Marcela said a lot of things regarding that, surroundings and materials. And I would like to point to something that Marcela said about like new ways of designing in her last project. And it made me think of a phrase from an anthropologist, Catherine Bateson. And she says, is that even though we are living longer today, we're thinking shorter. And I think this is something that addresses all, like it doesn't really matter whether we're Latin, whether we are located in the US, in any other country, or any other part of the world. It's a matter of how we are going to truly respect and honor the generations to come. So I guess in that order, like we need to shift to the temporal perspective that we are sort of like designing, and to properly look forward to a more to a longer term thinking. And that longer term thinking, I think it surpasses the location of where we stand.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, what I could say also is you need, if you, I don't know where you are or what are your possibilities or your needs, but for example, I when I was studying, I thought I was going to be involved through this social architecture design, and then, well, my mom has a lot of problems with her health, and I need to take care of her. So I needed to start working and to have some money. So I started trying to find clients and get rid of this social idea. I wanted to go to Africa, and well, sometimes you need to change and to adapt to your circumstances. And even if in your needs, you need to work into something that it's not allowing you to explore or to create through your freedom or through your passion. You can also find some options to do, I don't know, to go through contests, to research, there's a lot of options right there where you can explore, or through painting or through landscaping. So there's a lot of ways where you can go and trying to find what you like and what makes you happy through it, and also find a way to mix it with your actually way of designing or through your work. So yeah, you need to think about, we are humans and there's a lot of problems right out there. So we need to think through those problems and to find answers, or make just more questions, but there's ways to explore your passions.
Right. So Alicia was just letting us know that she was born in Houston, but grew up in Monterrey, and can totally relate to that last question that we proposed. So Ana Villanueva would like to know, she has a question for you both. You both have been part of a faculty in the universities. in the United States and in Mexico. How does the academia world affect or impact your professional work?
Do Gabriela go first?
I'm always going first. Next time it's gonna be me. But,
Okay.
but I was thinking about, I think the academia world, obviously it depends on each institution, but the real thing for me in participating in academia is the relationship between students and professors. And I think the relationship, when it's like properly addressed and when you are like really compromised and engaged with either studying or teaching, that relationship is what drives anything to another place of knowledge, of approach. And so I would say that it definitely, like, it could definitely not impact someone's works if there is not a responsible relationship in that. But if it is, then it obviously enriches everything, like from your personal experience to your professional experience. Like, when you create like these bonds, you're not only learning about the way to address a project in this context of architecture, but also the way you interact, the way you think, the way, like, it's also a relationship where you're learning also about the other person, the other way, the other person's thoughts and questions and I don't know, like interests. And from that perspective, when there's the proper commitment on both sides, it's like the most rich conversations and experiences that you can get to grow.
Perfect, thank you. Marcela, anything to add to that about?
Well, in my case now, I'm struggling with this academic structure. The last year, I told you I was there for 11 years, and I was always feeling like it's kind of stuck, like it's just building over the foundation of old methods and old problems. So I was always talking to the principal, like, we need to get involved with other disciplines. What happens if we get involved with doctors and with engineers and with the biologists? And we need to start like asking, collecting questions because we